The Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore has identified ransomware and phishing as two key malicious cyber activities in 2021. 137 ransomware cases were reported, an increase of 54% from 2020. The cases affected mostly SMEs from sectors such as IT and manufacturing. Now, CSA says these sectors' around-the-clock nature of operations did not provide much time for them to patch their systems, and so allowing ransomware groups to exploit vulnerabilities. Now, there were about 55,000 unique Singapore-hosted phishing URLs, or those with .sg domain cases last year. This is a 17% increase from 2020. Social networking firms made up more than half of the spoofed targets. Scammers also exploited the Omicron subvariant outbreak late last year to spoof government websites. Overall, cybercrime remains a key concern, with the police reporting over 22,200 cases last year, and that's up 38% from the previous year. Cybercrime also accounts for almost half of all police cases in 2021.
Well, for more, we're joined now by Tony Jarvis. He's director at Dark Trace. That's a company that specialises in cyber defence. Good evening, Mr. Jarvis. You've seen the data. We've got 54% of an increase in ransomware attacks, 17% increase in phishing attacks as well. How do you account for these high numbers that we're seeing? And is this similar to what the rest of the world is experiencing?
Yes, good evening. They are high numbers, and we are globally seeing a general rise in these numbers across various countries. It's difficult to say exactly by how much. Different reports tend to produce different statistics. But to give you a rough idea, a report I was looking at earlier painted a picture of a 93% increase globally in ransomware and a 46% increase in phishing alone. So the numbers are generally high. We also need to be mindful that a lot of the numbers we see are underreported because sometimes they do rely on people coming forward and actually notifying authorities. A lot of people don't really want to do that. They don't want to admit that they have been breached. And there is a signal that you do send to attackers by paying a ransom. You're basically telling them that this works. So they do come back, double down on their efforts if they start receiving payments. So typically countries where people are in the habit of making those payments receive even more attacks in future.
The report, Mr. Jarvis, tells us that SMEs from the manufacturing, the IT industries have been more prone to ransomware attacks. I wonder why it is, because earlier we said it's the nature of their business, their round-the-clock operations, which sort of help them not patch up their problems fast enough. There's got to be more, though. And how do they protect themselves?
Yeah, there were two industries called out really specifically in this report. One, of course, was manufacturing. Manufacturing is really hard to patch because these systems are online 24 hours a day. They're producing goods. For them to come down in order to actually patch them, you would literally have to stop business a lot of the time. So that's a reason why there tends to be a lot of vulnerabilities that do go unpatched in manufacturing environments. And they do have a higher likelihood to pay the ransom because they really want to get back to business and generating profits from manufacturing those goods. There was another industry called out, the IT industry, actually. And this is a real jackpot for attackers. By compromising one IT or information technology provider, they can actually compromise multiple victims because there is a flow-on effect. It's like a supply chain. So if there is a large software developer, for example, and they have contaminated patches going down to users, that is going to affect a lot of users. For attackers, that's a great return on investment. We've seen that a lot last year. We're definitely seeing that a lot this year. So it is prudent to take these precautions, things like backups, putting ransomware protections in place, definitely patching, and user awareness goes a long way as well.
Well, it seems like it's a never-ending issue and a never-ending effort to keep on top of cybercrime, but it's predicted that it's going to rise in the coming years as well, Mr. Jarvis. I mean, are we ever going to get a break on this, especially with the advent of new technology like cryptocurrency? What more can a normal person, just like you and me, what can we do to protect ourselves?
Yeah, cryptocurrency has explained a lot of the success behind modern ransomware, unfortunately. Back a few years ago, we would be asked to make a ransom payment. We would make it via a bank transfer or a credit card. And once that was done, we could contact the bank, we could contact the police, and they'd be able to trace that. But with cryptocurrency, that's very anonymous. It's very, very difficult to see who it's actually gone to, the criminal at the other end. The good news, though, is in order to avoid falling victim to a lot of these attacks, a lot of the good old advice still remains true. So if you do receive messages containing links and they're asking you to click on things, open attachments, look at them. Are they from people you know and trust? Just be really careful. Give it a second look. If you're receiving messages that tell you you can click on these links or download apps and they've got great discounts if you want to do some shopping, if it's too good to be true, very often it is. The good old advice of using strong passwords, definitely using multi-factor authentication, but really education as well. It pays dividends to read about the scams that are happening. Make sure you're aware what sort of things are actually circulating, because the better we understand this, the better we're able to protect ourselves and avoid becoming a victim ourselves.
And we appreciate that advice. Mr. Jarvis, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Tony Jarvis there, Director at Darktrace.